to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in my series of heavy thoughts. This is where I take a moment to ramble on for a little bit about some things that have been on my mind. And what's been on my mind this week is new music from classic bands that I grew up on. What are my expectations for these new albums? What got me thinking about this is I've made two videos now on the Iron Maiden, the two most recent Iron Maiden singles, and it's interesting reading the comments because you get this mixture of people that are like, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world. Other people are, they haven't done anything good since 1988, and I see this on Facebook too. It's not from my comments, but people are talking about the new Maiden all over Facebook and everything. And it got me thinking about these bands that I grew up on, these classic bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, Deep Purple, bands that are still putting out new music. And what do I really expect from these bands? So let's take Iron Maiden. All right, I discovered Iron Maiden in like '82, so my early Maiden stuff, Number of the Beast, Killers, Peace of Mind, all that stuff. That's the stuff that I heard first. That's my favorite Iron Maiden stuff, is the stuff from the '80s. It's the stuff that stuck with me. So do I really expect the new Iron Maiden album to be better than any of those albums that are already my favorite? Peace of Mind, I'll say it now, Peace of Mind is my favorite Iron Maiden record. Do I really think the new album is going to come out and I'm going to go like, whoa, this is better than Peace of Mind? No, I don't have that expectation, and for a couple different reasons. One, I realize that Iron Maiden has changed. They've moved on. They're in a different phase in their career right now. As much as I would like it if they were doing stuff in the style of the '80s, I realize that they're musicians, they're creative people, and they have to move on. They mature, they age, things change. They're not the same people they were in 1982. And the music reflects that, and I respect that. I'd rather see a band trying different things, trying to evolve, rather than trying to imitate who they were in their classic days, because it almost never works when bands try to do that. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that old guy, showing up at the dance club and trying to dress like a young person, and he just stands out like a sore thumb, rather than dressing his age. And this is the same thing with Iron Maiden. They're kind of, this is where they're at. This is the music that they want to make. So I don't expect it to sound like the stuff from the '80s. And because that stuff in the '80s, I have so many years with that, and so many memories and emotions and things tied up in those records. It's really unrealistic to sort of think that this new album is going to come out and it's just going to knock out all those albums that I grew up on and it's going to become my favorite album. It probably isn't, and it's really because, and this is going to be a topic for another video. I want to do a video that talks about why we like the music we like. And a lot of it, I think, is when you heard it, your age, maybe where you're from, your environment, maybe you have older brothers and sisters, whatever. That'll be a topic for another video. So those albums that I discovered in that impressionable young age, when I was a young lad getting into metal, my mind was a sponge and all this stuff was coming in. That stuff made a very strong impression on me, and it's almost like that can't be done again. It's been programmed into my DNA. It's like a kid when they're growing up, their environment when they're growing up. This is how they learn things. Well, my musical mind was a child at that time, and what I was learning from was Peace of Mind and British Steel, and For Those About to Rock, and all those albums that were coming out in the early '80s. So a new album, from Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, it's not really going to have a chance to make that same impression on me. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there, and maybe there's a kid out there who's just discovering heavy metal, and his first Iron Maiden record is going to be the new Iron Maiden album. I have my friend Steve from All the World's a Stage, and he went out recently. He's heard me talk so much about Iron Maiden that he said, "Oh, you know what? I've never listened to Iron Maiden," and he went out and bought all their stuff. And it's interesting because now he's a '70s rock guy, and I'm really curious to see what he thinks of the newer stuff. And he even commented in one of the videos I did for one of the singles, like, this is going to be the first new Iron Maiden album for me. So I'm real curious, somebody like him who has no history of the band, who has no, baggage with the band, so to speak, he has a fresh perspective on it, what he's going to think of it. It reminds me a little bit of the King Crimson music challenge that I did, where I listened to their entire discography. I realized that I knew outside of In the Court of the Crimson King, I knew none of their albums. So when I listened to their newer stuff, I had no baggage. I didn't have 30 years of listening to the 70s stuff to compare the new stuff to. I didn't have that. It was basically all brand new. So I think that that's a big factor in what our expectations are, where we came into these bands. Did you come into Judas Priest at Painkiller? Did you come into Iron Maiden on Fear of the Dark or Brave New World? Or did you discover Alice Cooper in the 80s with Hey Stupid and stuff like that? How about Kiss? Did you come into Kiss on a Dynasty? These are all things that can affect what your expectations are of a new album. So what do I expect from any of these classic bands that I grew up on? Well, honestly, I hate to say it, but my bar is a little bit lowered. And I'm going to use a sports analogy here. I'm a big hockey fan. I've probably mentioned it a few times on the channel. There's hockey players that are in the back end of their careers. They don't play the roles that they did before. They're not as good as they were before, but I'm still glad they're on the team. They still bring something, and there's still something there. And that's the way I view a lot of these bands. I'm not expecting Iron Maiden or Judas Priest or Alice Cooper to put out an album that's going to unseat any of the albums that are my favorites, that I have 30 years, 40 years invested in some of these albums. I don't expect that. What I hope for is a good album with some good songs, with some good riffs, an enjoyable record, that it feels like an old friend. I hear these albums and it makes me feel good. It's like, okay, here's good old Iron Maiden. If Peace of Mind is a 10 out of 10 for me, if this new album is a 7 out of 10, I'm okay with that. Hopefully it doesn't, it isn't something that's like, the worst album I've ever heard by them. I don't think it's gonna be, from what I've heard so far. And again, I'm not expecting them to change my world. I mean, maybe again, there's somebody, young kid out there, he hears this for the first time. This is going to change his world. But where I'm at as a grizzled veteran here of many hours with this stuff, I'm not expecting to have my world changed or anything. It's just kind of like an old friend, it's fun to hear them. It's fun to hang out with them. It'll be fun I'll buy the record the day it comes out. I'll be excited for it. I'll enjoy it. I've listened to all the newest Maiden stuff, quite a bit. The same thing with Judas Priest. I enjoy it. If push came to shove, of course I would pick the classic stuff. Whenever Judas Priest was out their next record, I'm not expecting it to be better than Stained Class. And I realized that where they're at in their career, I'm happy that they're here. I'm happy that they're still making music. They are my favorite bands. They have such a special place in my heart that I'm not going to get super critical on them. Why can't Bruce hit the same notes that he did on Number of the Beast? Or why can't Rob Halford do this, or, you know, why doesn't Alice Cooper put out an album like that? You know, I get it. Things have changed. They're older. They're in a different part of their career, a different phase of their career. I'm happy that they're around. I'm enjoying the stuff that they're putting out. Maybe my expectations are lowered a little bit. I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing that I do that I'm just sort of accepting whatever comes out from them and not putting such a high standard on it. I'm not expecting another Piece of Mind from Iron Maiden. I am expecting, though, a quality, good songs, hopefully good production, some good riffs, some good soloing, some good bass playing, all that kind of stuff. All right, so there you go. My expectations for the old classic bands that I grew up on. What are your expectations? Are you like me and you've spent a lot of time with some of these bands? What do you expect from them when they put out a new album? What are you hoping for? What are you realistically expecting from them at this stage in their career? Let me know in the comments down below. I enjoy these discussions. I don't always get a chance to answer everybody's comments, but I promise you I read everybody's comments, and I love having these discussions on topics like this with you guys, so I appreciate it. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you guys think, and until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.